Yes, I am. And I also want to invite everyone Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern time. I have my chapter meeting. So if anybody wants to join in, it's on the events on the Facebook page. So join the meeting. Okay, I'm going to read our mission statement. Our mission, Helping Parents Heal, is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally.
Thank you, Irene. That was wonderful. I'm really excited to introduce Catherine Yunt. Catherine Yunt, MC, combines her intuitive abilities with a Master of Counseling degree from Arizona State University to assist clients on their transformational journeys. 9 years of collaborative research at the University of Arizona documented Catherine's expertise as a precognitive dreamer, medical intuitive, psychic medium, and energy healing practitioner. Her work is featured in the documentaries Something Unknown is Doing We Don't Know What and The Life After Death Project, and in the books The Energy Healing Experiments by Dr. Gary Schwartz and An Atheist in Heaven by Paul Davids and Dr. Gary Schwartz. She was the co-executive producer of In Deep Shift with Jonas Elrod, a television series that aired on the Oprah Winfrey Network. Featured in the episode Love Never Dies, Catherine meets with Amanda to reassure her that the contact Amanda is experiencing with Alex is real. Alex Teves, Amanda's boyfriend, tragically lost his life by heroically saving hers since his passing in the Aurora, Colorado Theater shootings in 2012. Alex has appeared in Amanda's dream, addressing her questions and concerns. He makes contact with Amanda during her waking time as well, which Amanda refers to as her Alex miracles. Catherine assists Amanda in recognizing the benefits of continued connection and collaboration with the other side. Launched in January 2017, Intuitive Pathfinders is a weekly half-hour podcast helping listeners connect with their heart's intuitive wisdom. Episodes are posted on the website www.intuitivepathfinders.com or can be downloaded on iTunes. She is the founder of Inner Knowing LLC, and she mentors, teaches psychic spiritual development classes, and conducts private and group readings in person and over the phone. You can find out more information about Catherine at www.innerknowing.net. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Catherine Yunt.
Thank you. So I wanted to begin by just telling you how it is that I'm sitting here in front of you today. And not my plan, of course. You all know that we have plans, and that book, We Plan, God Laughs. I was a high school math teacher and French teacher. So I had a very left brain, logical, sequential thinking mind, very left brain. And my husband suddenly died when he was 38 and I was 38. Had 2 young sons, 3 and 6, and the 3-year-old was not well. He'd been a challenge since birth. His diagnosis was failure to thrive. So I was left with these two young boys and lots of questions about what just happened here, because my husband was healthy as far as we both knew, and it was totally unexpected. Really, I was angry, just really, really angry, and wanted explanations, and sort of like a temper tantrum, was stomping my feet, demanding that he answer me from the other side. And he did. He explained that we had a contract and this was part of the original contract, and he honored my choice, and why wasn't I honoring his? And this discussion went on for a number of years because it took me quite a while to work through how and mostly how was I going to raise these two children. So he agreed over time that he would help me co-parent, and he did. So I wasn't outnumbered. There was a lot of boy energy that he could sort of give me a heads up about when they needed some kind of intervention or attention, and I'm very thankful for that. Through that process, I began to get information and information for other people, and asked to deliver messages. And I was very, very hesitant because I was a math teacher, and who would expect your math teacher to be talking about some subject matter like that? I also would dream. I'm a dreamer, and sometimes I would dream about my students' health. And again, be in a sort of a quandary about how can I deliver this message so that it's acted upon. So I made a decision to go back to school and get a counseling degree. I figured if I was going to be involved in my own journey and understanding it to be able to help others, I'd really want some tools in my toolbox. And because I was teaching and I had two young sons, it took me 5 long, grueling years because I could only take one class at a time. But finally graduated in 1995 and began working for the city of Scottsdale, because I was living in Phoenix at the time, working with young people in their diversion program that had been arrested, first time arrest. And oftentimes information would come through, again, not the setting you would be expecting, but messages that nonetheless I thought would be helpful in healing and help the families, because I was not just working with the youth, I was working with the family as well. So at some point I decided if I really was going to be doing this professionally, I really wanted to understand how it worked. What was the, scientists call it the mechanism of action. How am I able to make these connections? How or why are Spirit choosing me to deliver messages to complete strangers? How does the actual process work? Really, I was asking why me, and how do I facilitate it? So that's what drove me to go to the research. Dr. Gary Schwartz was in Tucson. I was in Phoenix at the time. And I made an appointment to see him. And as it turned out, it was interesting because I have spiritual guides that give me insight and information in addition to my husband. And they told me, don't go until after my birthday. So my birthday's February 12th. I'm an Aquarian. So I made an appointment with Dr. Gary Schwartz for February 13th. And it turned out, unbeknownst to me, that a good friend and colleague of his had died on February 11th. So I show up and he wants a medium reading. So instead of having this official experiment that takes a lot of time to set up, it was sort of on the spot. Can you connect with this person and give me insight and information? And I was able to do that. She was quite helpful. Her name was Susie Smith, if any of you have read any of her books. She did a lot of research and work in the afterlife and has written many, many books. So she was very vocal about what she wanted done and how she had passed and what her plan was. And it was so specific that that was the beginning of Dr. Gary Schwartz saying, we'd like you to be part of our experiments. So for 9 years, I call myself a slow learner, 9 long years, I was participating in primarily medium research, but also precognitive dreaming research, medical intuitive research, and energy healing research. So I was really investigating for myself, how does this work? And if I can do it, can I teach other people? So what I love about this group is it's, if I understand it correctly, it's really empowering you to make your own connections and to trust those connections. And that's really my philosophy. I don't think, people ask me, do you think it's a gift? And I say, I think it's an ability that everybody has, that some of us have just had more interest, more curiosity, more motivation, more, in my case, anger and wanting answers, that drives us to really trust that ability that our loved ones are there and want to be a part of what's going on, even from the time forward. They can tell me when they come through things that have happened in the past, but they also can tell me things that are going to unfold. So I've learned over time that they're absolutely present, very interested and connected, and it's a matter of the individual really learning to trust those connections. So I've spent a lot of time mentoring and teaching and assisting others, and it's not so much in developing it, it's really more in trusting it. They really already have, and I'm sure you've had lots of experiences yourself, that you know without a doubt that was your loved one. And then sometimes you get into second guessing it. Well, I imagined it, or I wanted it to happen, or I read into it. And that's the part that I come in and say, no, that wasn't a valid experience. And the more you accept it and the more you have gratitude for it, my belief is the more you'll experience it. It's really making that connection and agreement. So I say, and I said this to Amanda in that television episode, it's really redefining your relationship. How are you going to carry on that relationship now that they're not in the physical? They're still connected. You're just going to redefine it and how. It's different for everybody, of course. So you get to make that decision with your loved one. How do you want to connect? And when do you want to connect? So I learned that I was setting some boundaries and parameters, like don't wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Not really a good idea when I'm driving because I'm trying to pay attention, unless of course you see a Mack truck coming, then let me know, please. It's like I had to work through what works for me. And just like you would do in a relationship with somebody in the physical, you negotiate what works and what doesn't work. And one of the first things I did with my husband was agree upon a sign. What sign was he going to leave for me and the boys to know that he wanted our attention, that he had something really valuable to convey to us so that we could stop what we were doing and really pay attention. And what we agreed upon were feathers. And I can tell you, I should have brought them so I could show you. I have the most unusual feathers found in the most unusual places. Sometimes where I would say to my boys, did you put that feather in the vegetable bin of the refrigerator? How did that get there? I came home from work one day and there was a pink feather with silver glitter on the tip of it on the welcome mat out in front of my door. How does that happen? Every time my husband had a really important message that he wanted to convey to the boys and I. So I always suggest to individuals, particularly if it's a recent loss, to figure out what makes the most sense in terms of a signal or a sign that you would recognize that that is your loved one saying, hey, I'm here, pay attention, I have something really significant to tell you. The most significant story that I have experienced around the feathers was years later. My youngest son, who'd been so ill, we found some alternative treatments, and He was doing well enough to graduate from college and take a job in Japan teaching English. And I dreamt that he was in a schoolyard and my older son and I were outside this fenced area, so we couldn't get to him. And people inside the schoolyard were pummeling him with rocks. And I said to my older son in the dream, Brian needs our help, but we're so far away. What can we do? And then I think in the dream, oh, we can ask your dad to help. So I said to my older son in the dream, tell your dad, and I'm telling him that Brian needs his help. So the first thing I do when I wake up the next morning is go to the computer to see, because we stayed in touch through email, to say what is going on. And there's already an email from him. They're 16 hours ahead of us. He's already emailed me and said, what's up with Dad? There are feathers everywhere. I found out what was happening was the school was negotiating with him, and I'm going to use the words pummeling because it was more than a negotiation, to get him to go to China and open a campus of their school in China. That's what my picture of the pummeling of the rocks was. And once he realized he had his dad to help him, he was a little better in the negotiations. This was his first job out of college. So he did end up going to China and opening a campus there. But it was so profound for me to have that experience, to realize, first of all, I recognized that even though my son was miles away, he needed help. I had the wherewithal to ask my husband for the help. My husband replied by sending the feathers and getting Brian's attention to come back to me to say, what's going on? That was so heartfelt for me, because it was that real understanding of how connected we all are always. It doesn't matter if they're on the other side or they're in Japan. There's this connection that's unbreakable, and that it works to be of service to each other. It's very, very helpful. So I've expanded it over the years to benefit not just myself and my family, but other people as well. And it's through that process that I discovered that there's a litany of souls on the other side who want to come through and be of help, even if you didn't know them. Let's say you're an artist, and Ted DeGrazia is one that shows up all the time for the artist. As soon as he shows up, I say to the client, are you an artist? Because he wants to help and assist in the art. So I say to people, when you're stuck, if you have a problem, let's say you're an engineer or a doctor, whatever problem that you have this whole collaborative team on the other side of individuals who are willing to be of assistance to you. And I found that out, quote unquote, the hard way. My very first, after the initial research with Gary and bringing through Susie Smith, the very first formal research and the way that they normally conduct it, they give you questions to answer about the sitter's loved one with a first name only. And in the middle of this very first official research, Christian Bernard shows up, just drops in, kind of just invites himself to the research. And I only know it's him because I have sight, and I see him in his lab coat, and his name is on his lab coat. And he wants to talk about heart transplants. He wants to talk about what makes them successful, why they fail. He gives a whole lot of information about heart transplants. And of course, I'm thinking, what does this have to do with this research situation? Because I'm in the blind, I don't know. And when he gets to the end of this long explanation, he said, I'd really like to continue collaborating with heart transplant surgeons. I really could be effective. I could be of assistance to them. I'm passionate about that. Could you please connect me with heart surgeons? And of course, I'm thinking, Right. It's not like I know heart surgeons. So we get done answering all the official questions for the research. The woman says to me, do you know what I used to do before I was a researcher for Gary? And I said, no, I have no idea. She said, I was on the heart transplant procurement team at University of Arizona. That answered my question. It's like he saw this resource. Christian Barnard knew that about this person that I had no idea, and saw it as an opportunity to connect and to ask for that his plea of being of assistance could actually be helpful for both of them. So I've had many, many experiences since. That one just was a little startling because I'm thinking I'm doing official research and there's nothing official about this drop-in. So I've learned to expect the unexpected, which I'm sure many of you've experienced when you're not thinking about it, or it just happens randomly, or so it seems. What I really, really took away from the 9 years of research, in addition to this whole team of souls that really want to participate, is that it's the heart connection. It's the heartstrings that connect us. And in Christian Barnard's case, it was literally heartstrings, but in other individuals, it's that loving, passionate, caring, sympathy, empathetic, love connection that allows me as a medium to connect the loved one here with the loved one there. That it really is that heartstrings, I call it. And that's so far removed from my left brain mathematical mind, because that mind is the left brain. We're talking about the right hemisphere of the brain, is that intuitive, loving, sensitive, compassionate artist, musician, photographer, creative, so totally opposite of the life I had been living. So it was really a unexpected journey for me. It wasn't anything that I set out to do or said, gee, I'm interested in. It was really more of curiosity on my part of how does this work? And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So from that moment, my mission has really been to support, encourage, give feedback. I think that's the most important part of this journey, and learning to trust it is the feedback loop. The more feedback you get, the more it convinces you, I'm onto something. This is really happening. I didn't just hallucinate it. I didn't make it up. I'm not losing it. It really is a tangible experience, and it can be recreated, so to speak. That's a long-winded way of saying this is how I got here today. Do you have a question about that, Elizabeth?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that this is just so fascinating. I just love the fact that we have all of these different experts on the other side who want to help us move forward in all of these important fields. Art, obviously, heart surgeons, that's just incredible. And obviously, those are maybe secondary to what everyone, the people that we want to speak to immediately, obviously, who are our kids.
Yes.
But I love the idea of being able to just figure out something that is going to symbolize the communication that you want to have with your loved one in spirit, with your son, your daughter, your sons, your daughters, and being able to know. And I know so many people who collect feathers. I know people who collect dimes. I know people who collect pennies. There are so many different signs that we could obviously choose. I'm fascinated by the fact that you've done 9 years of research about this. Have the people who have come through to speak to you talked to you about the other side? Is it possible for you to tell us a little bit about what's going on with our kids and what they're doing right now?
It really is individual, case by case, and only if they're willing to share, or if the parent is asking, do they tell me. I'm sort of just listening to the conversation. But what I would say I hear over time is that there is a period of time where there's an adjustment and an evaluation. Some people call it a life review, where the loved one is looking back at what was their soul plan before they came in, and what did they accomplish, and where do they want to move to next. So it's, and of course, time on the other side is very different than time here. So people will say, well, how long does that take? It's like it varies. There's just no regulation because it doesn't exist the way it does here. They will usually tell me who in the family is having the most difficult time. And they usually ask the person, their mother, their father, whoever they're speaking to, would you please tell so-and-so? And sometimes it's a girlfriend, and sometimes it's an aunt, and sometimes it's a grandmother. But they usually will tell me, so-and-so is really, really having a difficult time. Can you be of assistance to them? And again, sometimes it's not always what the parent wants to hear, but I feel an honor and an obligation to transmit what that loved one is asking for. So I make their wishes known.
That's beautiful. I have a question from two people that's very similar, and I think you can help both of them with this. Sherry's asking, how do you keep the faith and keep your heart open when they seem to go silent for a bit? And Lindsay is saying, I've had signs from my son for the past 16 months, but they seem to have stopped. I talk to him always. What can I do?
So again, sometimes they're off doing something else or attending to someone else, but it doesn't mean they don't know or aren't aware of what's going on. Sometimes they'll say, well, I went to Europe with Aunt so-and-so. It's like, okay, did you have a good time? Because back here at the ranch, we need X, Y, and Z. I think sometimes it has to do with us as well, that what's going on in our process, that we have to grow through. And when we do, then that connection is made stronger again. It's almost like a tapestry. It sort of weaves in and weaves out. In my case with my husband, it was usually when the boys needed something. He would come in and say, you know, you better go check on them because they're up to no good, kind of thing. Sometimes when I was asking him for specific information, like where am I going to work and how am I going to support us and where are we going to live, sometimes I wouldn't get answers to those things. And it would be so frustrating because it was like what I wanted to know was not necessarily what he was sharing with me. So it was frustrating. I remember having a dream maybe about 8 months after he had passed, and he was telling me in the dream that there was going to be a baby born into my family that year. I'm thinking, okay, great. I'm happy about that. But what I've learned over time is that when they're telling you something like that, that at the moment it doesn't seem relevant or significant or important, or it's not what you want to hear at the moment, there is some really significant reason they're sharing that. And so I always say to clients, just make a note of it, just write it down, because at some point it's going to unfold that it becomes apparent to you about why that piece of information was so significant. If you think of the gazillion things they could say or show you or tell you, why are they talking about that? Or why are you having that experience? There's something very meaningful to them about that. So again, I want to say, be patient with yourself, because sometimes it's our process or our grief. I don't know how many of you have read the book by Dr. Hawkins, Power versus Force. but he measures all those different emotions. And remember, it's the emotional frequency that we're connecting with them. So if we're on one of those lower rungs, just having a bad day, and our frequency's lower, it's harder for them to connect. So what I say is, if you felt like I always used to say I'm out in the South 40 with Dances with Wolves. It's lonely out here. I need some connection. It's like, okay, I have to shift my frequency. I have to do something for me to elevate so I can connect with them easier. And my guides always say that's laughter. Now, I know the last thing we want to do when we're in grief or we're mad is to laugh. But I have figured out, and Dr. Hawkins says this, that joy is on the very high end of that scale, is that if you can somehow watch a comedy, have an email buddy that sends you jokes, if you can somehow shift your energy or your frequency up, and laughter will do that, it'll make it easier for them to connect. And I know that's like, it doesn't make sense because you feel like crying, not laughing, but that laughter will elevate and move the energy. So my guides always tell ridiculous jokes, which I have to do a disclaimer for because they're so bad, but they're looking for that laughter to shift the energy. And they will say, if you want the shortcut, you don't have to read all these books or take all these classes. All you have to do is laugh out loud as often as you can. It's the shortcut to your own physical healing. It's the shortcut to your own emotional healing. And it's the shortcut to enlightenment is laughter. So I have learned over the years that sometimes my tears turn into laughter, or sometimes my laughter turns into tears, and that's okay, because I'm elevating that frequency, and that will help you reconnect with them.
I love that because I love to laugh. And I know that my kids are laughing with me when I'm laughing, and they have a ball when I do. And that is true, that it raises our vibrations. We're able to connect with them so much easier. But I just wanted to go back to what you said about a tapestry. We had Daniel John speaking last night, and Brian Smith brought up something that was absolutely beautiful. And he was explaining that our lives are like a tapestry, that we see all of the pieces of thread on this one side and can't understand what it is. And then when we get to the other side, that tapestry is turned around and we see all of the beauty and everything that we've created in such a different way. And I think that that's what the kids are seeing as well. I also wanted to go back to what you were saying about maybe they're in Europe visiting with their aunt. I think too that they can be in many places at the same time.
Yes, I believe that too.
And that maybe if they aren't visiting with us quite as much, it's because our grief is keeping them from being able to get through. As you were saying, we need to laugh more, which is really hard to do. We need to raise that vibration. We need to go out into nature, go hiking.
Yes.
And when I go hiking, I do this very strange thing, and I usually do it by myself. I hike saying grateful, sacred, as I am hiking. And I say that over and over again. And you would not believe the amount of signs and communication that I have when I'm hiking, which is just wonderful. I have so many questions for you, and I don't want to keep talking like this. There are parents who are asking, how did your husband talk to you? Or how does he talk to you? Did you see him? Did you actually hear him? What is that experience for you?
He talks to me. I'm more clairaudient. I had an experience early on. In fact, he was still living, where I saw spirit in the room. I was feeding the baby, and I looked up and saw a spirit standing there, and it scared me. I mean, scared me. And when I went back, I finished feeding the baby, put him down. When I went back to bed, I could see this geometric pattern on the bed, on the comforter, which I knew wasn't there, but I could see it clear as a bell. So I woke my husband up and said, "What do you see? Look at this." turn it over. What do you see? Get out of bed. Come and see if you can see the spirit. And he's looking at me like, you know, I got to get up at 5 o'clock to go to work. I'm not seeing anything. What is going on with you? I said, I don't know, but I am pretty freaked out. But we had classes in our home, and we'd had a woman come that night to teach us Tai Chi. And I think the movement of that energy moved the energy field that opened or altered me, not intentionally, but it happened that then I had this access to this other dimension. But it frightened me so much that I just shut it off. And I said to Spirit, okay, if you're going to scare me, it's not going to work. I mean, you just flip me right out of it. So maybe you should just talk to me. And years later, somebody said to me, okay, so let me get this straight. You were okay hearing voices in your head, but you thought seeing somebody made you a little freaked out. I said, yep, that's it. So there's different ways people present. I sometimes see an image in my head, never in the room, because after that first experience, it really scared me. But mostly I just hear the voice. I just hear someone talking to me. And if it's not my husband and it's not my guides, they'll identify themselves. Or like in the case of Christian Bernard, I saw his name on his lab coat, so then I knew who he was. If I don't know who they are and they don't identify, then I ask. I just ask, I say, who are you? Do you come in light and love? And can I be of service to you? And if they say yes, and then I ask them, how can I be of service?
Oh, that's so beautiful. Kate is asking, I have found that the pain is lessened. The awareness of my son has faded. I have wondered about the impact of my taking antidepressants, or am I just losing the magical sense of awe when I get the signs, usually hawks and ospreys?
You know, again, it's like this. It's not consistent. That's the problem. That's what frustrates us. It's not like it can happen on demand or happen consistently. It has to do with how we alter our awareness. So in addition to laughter, I suggest meditation. That's a way of altering your awareness. Yoga, Tai Chi, any of those types of activities, you're altering your awareness. When you alter your awareness, then you can have any of these experiences. So that's how I learned that I could remote view, or that I could be a medical intuitive, or that I could heal. It's like all I had to know was that if I altered that awareness, then I could do whatever I wanted to do in that, including talking to loved ones. So it's really about altering your awareness. And how do you want to do that? Meditation, dreams, you're already altered. So keeping track of your dreams, I think, is really important, because most souls will come through in a dream. The other tool that I found is water. Water makes you so receptive. If you think about your own physical body, I think it's about 70% water now. We started out at 90, but we're dehydrating as we age. And you think about Mother Earth being 70% water, there's a divine design there about water. To me, it's a receptive. So it's why we get sick when we get dehydrated. If the water is the information conduit, passing that information to the cells, when you don't have the water to pass the information, you get sick. So being in water, in the shower, in the tub, washing the dog, washing the car, having your hands in water, having your feet in water, walking near the beach or near the lake, I think water makes you much, much more receptive. And I tell this story, a good friend of mine, she has a nonprofit, and she was trying to figure out how to raise money. She was doing laps in her swimming pool, and she said, I had this vision of the casino here in Arizona. We have casinos. And she gets into an argument with herself about, I'm not getting out and going to the casino. And she keeps swimming, and then she sees slot machines, and she gets much more specific detail. She finally gets out, gets dressed, goes to the casino, plays the slot machines, and she wins $16,000. I said to her, I'm coming to swim in your swimming pool. I think she made herself more receptive. She was asking. So that's number one, asking. And then paying attention and being open and being in the water, I think she made herself more receptive. Well, so expecting it, asking for it, having gratitude when it does happen. I call it walking in the magic. And it doesn't happen for me all the time either. I mean, sometimes I get really frustrated because it's like I miss that feeling of walking in the magic. Well, have I been meditating? No. Have I been swimming? No. Okay, I need to get back to doing those things that, again, elevate, alter, and then make myself more receptive.
That's beautiful. Well, I had just said recently in a meeting, and Donna just brought this up as well, to put a glass of water by your bed before you go to sleep. If you want a dream visit, obviously tell your loved one where and when you want to meet, exactly where in your dream you want to meet. But it's a conduit. So that water, having it there makes it easier to be able to have that dream visit. So it's something that I love the fact that you think that water is so important. And
I worked with Dr. Emoto when he was on the planet, and he's the one that convinced me how powerful water is. I do a lot of finding missing persons, and I hold my hand over a glass of water with their name and can I be of service of helping to find them. I drink a little water before I go to bed. When I wake up in the night, because I have to use the bathroom now, I jot down the dream. And I just recently found a missing person 2 weeks ago using that method. I hold my hand over the water. I put my intention or my question in the water, then I drink it. So now it's communicating. And then I do something to help recall. I usually say, I will remember when I awaken, because sometimes we have dreams and we don't remember it. So I'm a big fan of water. As you know, I'm also an astrologer, and I look at people's chart to see how much water they have in their chart. Are they a Pisces, Scorpio, Cancer? Do they have a lot of planets in water houses? Because they're more receptive. Water doesn't have boundaries. So energetically, you can flow like water, and they can come into your energy field and you can go into theirs. So I'm a big fan of water. I tell you, I did my own experiment. After 9 years, I decided, okay, I'm going to start doing my own experiments. I was diagnosed with osteopenia in my left hip. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to hold my hand over my glass of water every night or anytime I'm drinking anything with water and say, healthy bones, healthy body. So I did that for a whole year. Every time I'm drinking anything, tea, water, whatever, healthy bones, healthy body. When I had my DEXA scan done the next year, my bone density had improved. And the doctor wanted to know what I was doing. I said, well, I can share it with you, but I'm not sure you're going to understand it. So,
he needs to share it with all of his patients, that's for sure. Susan is asking, do you think our children know when we will transition, and do they miss us? And I'm sure you'll tell everyone that our kids don't miss us, first of all, but I'd love for you to be able to answer that question yourself.
Well, you know, it's interesting because we think they miss us, but they're with us. They're right there with us. So it's not like they're missing anything. As I said, they tell you or tell me things that have happened since they've passed, and sometimes they tell me things in the future. I had a family who had lost a daughter, and she came through so strong, such a strong spirit. And she told me that the family was going on a family vacation and that she was going to show up in the pictures, that they needed to look at the pictures and the videos that they took on this vacation because she was going with them. So when they got back from vacation, the father sent me, emailed me some videos that they had taken. And there's 4 of the families jumping up and down at the beachside. And there's this orb that's between them that's jumping up and down the whole time they're jumping up and down, just clear as a bell. So this spirit knew, I mean, I had no idea they were going on vacation. She knew where they were going. She knew when they were going, and she was going with them, and she wanted them to have evidence of that. So I don't think they miss us in the way we miss them, because they're much more aware that they're in our space. Once we can alter our consciousness enough, we'll understand that and have that experience with them. We'll miss them that we can't hug them and hold them like we did physically, but we still have this relationship, and we become really aware of how present they are.
Well, and also, I just want to say that from what I've understood from a lot of mediums, they actually can feel that hug when they hug us.
Yes.
And when they hug us, we might not be able to feel that, but some of us are lucky enough to be open enough to feel that hug. And I certainly have had that incredible hug from Morgan over and over again since he passed, which is, I've kind of described like drinking a glass of red wine, just feeling this incredible well-being that goes through you, kind of, which is terrible to say. It sounds like I'm an alcoholic, but I really, it's kind of that, because it kind of goes all the way down through me. So that's beautiful that you say that, though. I want to just tell you what people are saying. Donna's saying, I love that. That's amazing. Sherry's saying, I am a Cancer. That must be why I love being near the water. Lindsay's saying, she's amazing. Teresa's saying, I'm a Cancer rising. Adriana's saying, amazing. Wow. Sherry's saying, this is so amazing. Teresa's saying, that is amazing. Let's see. Candy's saying, can you explain the meaning of nightmares and how to stop them?
Yes. So the dream state has two levels. One is the subconscious working out unfinished business of our life during the day. And the other is the superconscious, where our loved one meets with us, or we have a healing, or have one of those superconscious kinds of examples. So to me, nightmares are on the subconscious level, where we're if we get into the REM state, our body is really trying to work it out for us. And it shows up as a nightmare, because often if it was actually happening during the day, we would call it a nightmare. But it's really a healing. It doesn't feel that way, but it's really a healing where the subconscious is working it out. And once it gets worked out, then the nightmare stops. So giving it permission, or going into it, or asking, how can I work with this? How can I be a part of the solution so that I'm not disturbed? Making the daytime and nighttime sort of collaborate together. But it's a healing. It's absolutely a healing. And I look at that same way when our body is sick. It's not something new. We've been processing something on the mental level or the emotional level, and now it's being expelled through the physical. So it's the same way with the nightmare. We're working through it and working through it. Why sometimes it's reoccurring, because we're still trying to get those pieces to come together. So giving it permission and acknowledging it, sort of like anxiety, and nobody likes to have that, and we try to push it away. But if we embrace it and see it as part of the healing and not resist it, we can really work with it and move through it. I think keeping a dream journal and writing fundamentals, what shows up in the nightmare? What is it that's reoccurring? And then taking that into a meditation, or when you're walking, saying, okay, tell me about that part. Usually it's a part that we fear. It's some kind of fear that's trying to get resolved. So it's not an unhealthy thing. It really is a healthy process of trying to bring to a homeostasis, some peace around something that's bothering us.
Wonderful. Vanna is saying, thank you. I'm loving this talk. What about frequent dreams of bodies of water, like a beautiful lake or a beach?
And I think that's the resonance with that represents that altered state. So I would say more of it, bring it on. I'm always asking, go to the beach, take me to the beach. If I'm really had a troublesome day, or I'm not feeling well in my dreams, I always say, take me to the beach and heal me. It's my favorite place. Someone gave me a little Christmas ornament. It's a little chair, and it has a little pillow sitting in it, and it says, find your inner beach. I love that. I think that's a place of peace for people. And again, it goes back to us being 70% water. And we started out in the womb. I mean, we're all about the water. So if we're looking for balance and peace and harmony and tranquility and this altered state, water's where it's at.
This is This is wonderful. We have so many people saying, this is great information. Awesome. Thank you so much. Such relief. Great presentation. Thank you so much. Flying dreams feel so realistic as well. This presentation is fantastic. Doris is saying, I just visited your website. I am so impressed with your podcast recommendations. I have heard the first two. So informative. I have Sherry asking, do you do readings? And if so, how can we schedule one? Is that
I do readings, but primarily, remember, I'm trying to support you in developing your connection. So a lot of the reading will be giving you tips and tools and confirmations that some of the experiences you've had were legit. So I think my readings might be a little different than the traditional medium reading, but you go to my website and there's a contact page, innerknowing.net. My philosophy really is about empowering people. Again, it's not that I have a special unique gift. It's like, let me help you find yours. That's really my goal. And so when I do a reading, I always ask for your birth date, time, and place, because I'm looking at your astrological blueprint of how you're hardwired and what's happening right now. I can see in your chart, because it's like a clock, it tracks you. And I give you information and insight that really help you sort of focus your energy in these areas, and you're going to get the most growth in return. That's really my focus.
That's wonderful. Renee is saying, thank you. This has been so informative. You're such a captivating speaker. Suzanne is saying, you are explaining so much that makes sense. Annalise saying, love this. Sherry saying, love it. Thank you. So she's the one who was asking about how to get a reading. Vanna is saying, what a blessing. Deep bows. I would love, because we have just about 5 minutes left in the presentation, for you to leave us with some words of wisdom. You've already given us so many, but people are saying, really appreciate your left brand Genesis. What a phenomenal teacher. Thank you. So I guess that what I would like to be able to understand is, obviously you did 9 years of research, but you didn't need 9 years of research to actually communicate with your husband.
No.
That was something that obviously through anger you were able to do almost immediately. So
yes, because I said I want an answer, and I want an answer now.
So maybe that's what we need to be doing as well. But I love the information about raising your vibration and all of the, I think that all of us are going to get off of the presentation and drink a gallon of water.
You know, the other thing I would say is do something creative. Creative is the life force moving through you. So any form of creativity. So I do mosaics, and there's a therapeutic part of smashing that tile with a hammer, gets that anger out. And then I put all those pieces together to form a new picture. But I've learned that any form of creativity is exercising that right hemisphere of the brain. And the right hemisphere is the part that receives the messages, the synchronicities, the signs. So anything that you're doing to stimulate the right brain, listening to music, dancing, anything that you're doing that's creative, needlepoint, it doesn't matter what it is, it's stimulating that right hemisphere. And that's the part that receives. I had, head cap on when they were doing all the research, and it didn't matter if I was healing or channeling or mediumship. It didn't matter. It was always the right hemisphere of the brain. So do what you can to exercise that part of your brain, and you're then making yourself more receptive.
I have one more question. Tina is a fairly new member. She's such a sweetheart. And she's just saying that she's had vivid dreams since she was young. And she had a dream about her daughter telling her that she was going to be okay. Everything is all right. This is 3 months before she passed. It was a very detailed dream. I beat myself up after she transitioned because I felt I should have paid more attention, even though in the dream I was told that there was absolutely nothing I could do. Do you think that her soul was preparing Tina's soul?
Absolutely. And I dreamt before my husband died that he died. I dreamt 2 months before he died. And I was so upset and expressed that to him. And of course, he talked me right out of it. But I do think it was a way of softening the blow, of preparing me. I had some insight, although I dismissed it, or he dismissed it, and then I did too. But yes, absolutely. I think that's the purpose of precognitive dreaming. And I did do some research, is to give us a heads up so that we have some, it's not such a shock to our system.
Wonderful. And I have another one. I just have to have you talk about this very quickly.
Yes.
Sarah's saying that she has sleep paralysis pretty regularly. Could you speak to that maybe? I know my daughter has had trouble with that and has been able to get through it, but could you just give her a tip or two about that?
Is it something that happens in a situation where she's dreaming about something fearful and that she's stuck? Because paralysis usually is the translation of I'm frozen or I'm stuck. When we have fear, we have fight, flight, or freeze. She may be trying to process something and is in that freeze mode, and then it physically shows up. Our bodies are such great feedback loops. We do not understand how our bodies give us so much feedback. So I would say talk to your body about it and say, where am I stuck? What am I in the trauma or the fear about that I'm in that freeze mode? And see if she gets some insight around that.
That's beautiful. And people are saying so much about, thank you for all of this information. It's been amazing. Wow, thank you for this talk. This is Tina, actually. It's been amazing, informative, and very healing. Jenny is saying that she had a dream 3 times before Ken, her son, passed. Just as his accident was. I think that these are all very indicative that this was meant to be, and there was nothing in the world that anyone could have done to stop it. And I think that that removes all of the guilt, all of the worry. It is as it's supposed to be, and all of our kids are together and having a fabulous time with your husband.
Oh, it's a big party on the other side, I can tell you that.
I know it is. Actually, they're pretty lucky, but we've got lots of work to do here. They're home and we're still in school, so we've got a lot of stuff that we still have to do while we're here. But if we can do it with as much happiness and as much and raising our vibration as high as we can, that's the best way that we could do it. I just truly appreciate everything that you've given, all of this information that you've given us tonight, Catherine. This has been wonderful. And at the end of the presentation, we always ask everyone to unmute. I think Irene has already done that, allowed everybody to unmute and say goodbye and thank you. So if you guys would like to do so, and we'll see you on Monday, definitely. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
I'll say
Great meeting.
sweet dreams tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Back.
Thank you.
Beautiful dreams. Thank
Get
you.
the water.
Thank you.
yes, lots of water.
Yes,
Have
we'll
a
toast.
wonderful-
Cheers.